winter of 2014, Ukraine changed forever. Not because of tanks, not because of missiles, but because of decisions made in silence. While the world would later focus on front lines and battles, a very different war had already begun. A war without uniforms, without official declarations. A war of intelligence services. And Ukraine became its battlefield. In 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. Ukraine suddenly became independent and instantly vulnerable. Between Russia and the West, for Moscow, Ukraine was never just another country. It was depth, a buffer, a security zone. Without Ukraine, Russia felt exposed. For the United States and Europe, Ukraine meant something else. A country that could shift westward, a state that could change sides. And this is where the competition began. Quietly. Russian intelligence networks did not disappear after 1991. They adapted. Former KGB structures remained active. The FSB took over. The GRU stayed in place. Politics, the military, the economy. Russian influence ran deep inside Ukrainian institutions. The West saw this and responded, not with soldiers, but with programs, advisory missions, security cooperation, training. Everything appeared legal. Everything was strategic. No one called it a proxy war, but that is exactly what it was becoming. In 2013, tensions escalated. Ukraine's leadership halted closer ties with the European Union. The streets filled with protesters. Maidan. For many, it was a popular uprising. For intelligence services, it was a signal. Who was organizing it? Who was sustaining it? Who stood to benefit? Russia saw Western influence. The West saw a democratic movement. Both were true, and both were incomplete. Maidan was not an accident. It was a turning point. After this moment, there was no way back. In 2014, the response followed. Crimea was annexed. The Donbass ignited. A political crisis turned into a permanent intelligence war. After 2014, the illusion ended. Ukraine was no longer neutral. It became a front-line state. Not officially, but in reality. For Russia, the West had moved too close. For the West, retreat was no longer an option. The question was no longer whether influence would be applied, but how far it would go. Intelligence services became the core instrument. Not armies, not diplomats. Information became decisive. Western agencies helped reshape Ukraine's intelligence structures. Personnel was reviewed. Networks were rebuilt. Who could be trusted? Who had been compromised? At the same time, Russia responded. Networks were reactivated. Cells were reinforced. Quietly, but effectively. Between 2015 and 2021, the conflict was officially described as frozen. In reality, it never stopped. Cyber attacks tested systems. Disinformation tested societies. Every election, every crisis, every scandal, a test. How fast does information spread? How do populations react? Intelligence services were collecting data, not for today, for the next phase. From Moscow's perspective, a dangerous threshold had been crossed. Ukraine was becoming militarily compatible with the West. Not officially in NATO, but functionally aligned. Communications, intelligence sharing, doctrine. Red lines were declared and ignored. By late 2021, the tone changed. Western intelligence agencies began issuing unusually public warnings. Detailed, specific. Troop movements, time windows, possible attack directions. Why such openness? Because deterrence had failed. Only preparation remained. Information became the final weapon. Russia reacted sharply. calling it provocation, psychological warfare. But behind the scenes, planning continued. Logistics, targets, timing. The intelligence war had reached its endpoint. What followed was not a surprise. It was the result of years of decisions. On February 24, 2022, open war began. For the public, it felt sudden. For intelligence services, it was inevitable. But the real conflict continued beneath the surface. Real-time intelligence, target selection, information control. This war was not fought only at the front. It was fought in server rooms, in command centers, in decision rooms. A new form of warfare emerged. Military strikes and covert operations merged. Sabotage, cyber operations. Actions without attribution, often denied, rarely confirmed, but always felt. The Ukraine war is not a regional conflict. It is a global test. For intelligence services, for societies, for power structures. What works here will be repeated elsewhere. And now we reach the most invisible part of this war. Operations that officially do not exist. Sabotage across Europe. Cyber attacks without signatures. Interventions without proof. In the next episode, we examine this shadow war.